All right, our next fun topic is going to be the topic of inventory, prices, and expenses. So, part of the business that nobody wants to do is the accounting part. It's not fun. I find myself kind of pushing it to the wayside, but I try to do it after every event or at least at the end of every month. If you don't do a lot, maybe just quarterly. But I find if you keep up with it throughout the year, when tax season does come around, you're not buried in a pile of receipts. There's a lot of different ways that you can do that. But first of all, we'll talk about just kind of managing your income or your inventory. Um, so if you are going to do live events and you're going to order author copies to sell at events, you need to determine whether or not your events are profitable and keep track of your income and how much you're making and also on the expenses side. So your inventory is going to be critical. You're going to have to keep track of it. You're going to have those numbers for the beginning of the year and have the numbers for the end of the year and have everything that you've bought in between. So you're going to have to find out how you're going to track that inventory. And if you only have a couple of books, it's not a big deal. But if you start to get, I think I have like 15 books now, um, it can get a little intense. So I have 15 books and coffee and art and games. And so inventory can be quite a task. You want to make sure that whenever you're considering the cost of your goods, being your books, we're going to just talk about books. You're going to talk about like how much does Amazon charge you or whoever you're going through charge you for an author copy. You also want to include the shipping because that is the cost that you incur to get that book on, to sell. So that would be, your cost of books sold. Um, Basically, what did you pay for that book to put it in your inventory? So you need to kind of take that into account whenever you're determining your pricing. How much does the book cost you? How much do I need to mark this up in order to be successful? My general rule of thumb on that is at least 40%. Um, so I try to price my individual books and even my bundles. My bundles, since they're a savings deal for the customer, are usually pretty close to 40%. They might be 38, they might be 35. It just depends on where I feel comfortable on placing the price point. I like to do nice even dollar amounts, like 15 or 10. Sometimes I do have a 12 or a 14 in there. It just depends on what you think people are willing to pay for the book, and how much you think you need to charge, to be able to make income, on the back end to be a successful business. Because you don't want to just sell at cost. You're going to have other expenses that you're going to need to cover throughout the year. So, you need to charge a little bit more so that you can cover all your expenses. And let's face it, we all want to make profit off of this. So I try to set profit margins as at least 40%. Um, I do for my pricing for events. There are calculators out there. I do have a formula out on my website to have a tax inclusive pricing. I tend to find it's just easier for me an event to just have even dollar amounts. I kind of factor in, you have to think about, if you're going to run a credit card, that's going to be an additional fee. There's going to be fees associated with running the card, like 2.9% of the transaction. Whatever your POS system that you're using is going to charge you that. So that's kind of a cost of doing business. So I kind of consider that whenever I'm pricing. That's another reason why you want the 40% or above, 40 to 50 maybe. Um, and then also your sales tax, you need to consider that that's in there too, because those are things right off the top that you're not getting. Those are off the top expenses that you're incurring as a result of that sale. every single time that you make a sale. So you need to consider those things whenever you're pricing things out. And like I said, the equation is on my website. I do create spreadsheets, and then I can just kind of drag the formula down and it will calculate everything for me. It'll calculate, what the actual sale price of it is, what the sales tax portion of it is, and what my profit margins are on it. So I can get a pretty good feel for where I'm standing financially for each book or each bundle that's sold. Um, Tracking expenses, if you're going to do book events, you have a vendor fee typically for your booth or table. That needs to be something that's considered in your sales to determine whether or not that event you did based on the number of sales of your books. So, you kind of look at, I sold X amount of books. You kind of have to minus out the cost of those books, and whatever that profit point is, then deduct your booth fee off of there that will kind of tell you whether or not that event is profitable for you or not. I've learned a lot over the years. There have been shows that I've done that I lost a lot of money at, and it just wasn't the place for me. I've had others that I never expected to sell so many. Just goes to show that it's hard to say, but you do need to track it. I will typically say if it's a good event and you think that it's worth keeping, but you don't make money the first year, you might consider doing it for 3 years to determine, over a long term if it's worth it or not. Sometimes events can have off years, if there's some other event going on in the area that, like a car show or a craft festival or something that pulls somebody away from the event. It is something to consider, and the next year might be better. So, you hate to cross it off the list after just one try, but, just you're going to have to make a gut feeling on whether or not you think the people who go to that event are your customers or not. I mean, you should know who your readers are and whether or not you see any of them there or not. And if you see none of them there, then probably don't go the next year. But any of your advertising expenses, your business cards, if you have to buy any software, I found a great software called Wave Financial. It's free bookkeeping software. It's great. There is a little bit of a learning curve on learning, how to log the debits and credits to the different accounting folders, but you can log your income and your expenses and your sales tax, and you can keep track of all of it in there. It's almost like a QuickBooks, but it's free. So go out and check that out. I wish that they had like a phone app where I could just take a picture of the receipt and upload it right then and there. They do not have that capability yet, but hopefully, I know they're testing it, so hopefully down the pipeline. Like I said, it's a free software, so kind of, take it with a grain of salt. It is what it is. It's free, and it actually does the job very well. So I would consider taking a look at it. That is primarily where I do most of my bookkeeping and accounting. I'm trying to think what other things, your booth fees, commissions. If you pay any kind of an editor, if you pay an artist for a book cover, if you buy a computer, those can all be deducted as business expenses. If you have any kind of insurance, sometimes events will require you to purchase liability insurance, legal or professional services, office expenses. Trying to think, repairs, supplies, any kind of papers, meal and travel. You can log your mileage to and from events, and that is also tax deductible. If you have specific space for your writing, you could potentially write off utilities or home office deduction. Although I think they've done away, the home office deduction seems almost impossible now because there's so many people working from home now. I have tried a million different ways to qualify for it, and I still haven't been able to do it. And I actually have a lot of space in my home that's devoted especially to my business. So good luck with that. And if you figure it out, let me know. Um, But those are just kind of some of the things to consider. Keep your receipts. I have all these folders behind me. Whoop, right there. That is where all my receipts go. There's a folder for every month. After I log the month, I file them away there. And then at the end of the year, boom, I put it all in a manila folder with my P&L statement, which I think we'll talk about next time. And boom, it's done. So it makes tax season, I'm not tearing my hair out at tax season. So some things to consider there. Just make sure you're tracking everything that you're buying, that you're adding to inventory, your expenses, keep receipts for everything, save them, log them. And that way, whenever you file at the end of the year, things should be easy peasy. So there'll be more about, I think we're going to cover profit and loss statements and some other things. But, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. Bye.